Let's take a look at this dude who is walking. Boom, 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 boom. You can sort of get a feel for the rhythm of his footsteps. And, you know, everything's metallic here. You could imagine he is quite heavy on this metal. And so the way I have put footsteps in is to use a simpler track. And so I had a blank instance of simpler. I chose this clap white noise sample, and I have pitched it down 24 half steps. I have adjusted the sample. I'm using it in one shot mode, and I've cropped out the beginning because I didn't like the way it started. And now I can play that sample with my MIDI controller. And so what I did is I watched this video, and as I watched it, I tried to play a MIDI note whenever this guy's foot went down. And then when it went to the wide shot, I cut that out because we probably would not hear the footsteps from this far away. But when we're up close to him, you're definitely going to hear those footsteps. Now, that's a pretty simple sound. And one thing I don't like about it is that there is no transient to the footfall. It's very hard to hear the footfalls themselves. So by adding this kick, click, layer real drum sample into another sampler underneath this, and I just duplicated the track and replaced the sample, then we have the clicky sound of the transient of the foot and the weighty sound of the, you know, heavy dude on this metal platform together. And of course we can add processing to that, and when we build the rest of the soundscape around it, it'll kind of blend in, and it'll just sound a lot more realistic. Now let's take a look at this section of the video right here. We have this enemy guy, and he has these sort of laser blades that come out of his arms, and we want to make that sound. And so I'm going to find a sound effect that might be useful for that, and then we're going to process it. So let's just preview some of these. Even though that's pretty long, I think we can use it. Let's put that in there. Right there. Okay, move that window out of the way there. And we're definitely not going to need all of this. So I'm going to click right here and hit Command E to separate that, and then delete that. Zoom in a little bit. Now we have something to work with. I'm going to loop this section, maybe extend that loop out a little bit. And that's still a little too long. And I'm going to bring the volume level down on the track. I could also do it here in the clip detail view. I could bring just that clip down if I didn't want to bring the whole track down. I could try what it sounds like reversed. And then I might want to warp that and make it faster. That's cool. I like that. And now let's look at maybe some creative delay techniques with Echo here. Echo is one of my favorite Ableton plugins, and I'm going to drop it right on the track there. Echo is a delay plugin. It has reverb. It has all kinds of modulation. We could spend a long time looking at every parameter of Echo, but we're not going to have time to do that. So instead, I'm going to very quickly delink the left and right. I'm going to click Sync to set these to milliseconds instead of a synced musical value. And then we're going to use ultra short delay times to adjust this. And we can use different delay times on the left and right side for different results here. I'm going to crank up the feedback, and we'll also be adjusting the dry wet knob. So again, I'm just going to loop this and adjust these parameters. Already with this 1 millisecond delay, you can hear a big difference in the timbre. Listen to it without echo and then with it. So when you have very short delay times, like almost 7 milliseconds, a little over 5 milliseconds, some interesting things happen. Instead of an actual discrete delay, the timbre changes. You get this sort of metallic-y sound that I think is very appropriate for this environment. Another thing we could do is we could automate these delay times to give a little extra movement and interest to it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click and choose Show Automation. And I'm going to take that from 644 to, let's do 1 millisecond. And I'll do the same thing with this. I will take this from 559. Let's raise the value here and let's see what happens. That's kind of a cool sound, and we could layer this with other sounds to really bring out those arm laser knife things. So that is a way to use delay creatively. Instead of using very long times like a quarter note or an eighth note or something, you use very short millisecond times. You can automate it to have some timbral motion, and you can get some great results that way. You can do this with long sounds too. If I go all the way back to my ambient noise here, I'm going to bring my EQ down. I'm going to put echo on this. And let me solo that. And again, let's listen to what it sounds like. Now we've got some echo on here, and I'm going to right click and show automation. And I'm going to desync these. I'll leave this linked for now. So we're just going to have one setting for both left and right. And I'm going to click Show Automation. And let's just change this over a length of time here. Maybe from 1 second, like every 5 seconds. We could change something. And then if I raise it, then this delay time is going to increase and the pitch will change. If I bring it the other way, it'll change the other way. So two changes are happening. Number one, the pitch is either rising or falling depending on if we have a progressively shorter delay time or a progressively longer delay time. And then once it hits that point, it sort of settles down and there's a change in pitch as it's settling, as it's going through all those delays. If we want to lengthen that amount of time, we can, of course, increase the feedback here. And that's a pretty neat effect. Let's listen to how that sounds with the video to give us some context. And I will unsolo it. And I'm not sure what that landscape would sound like. Of course, it's imaginary. Maybe it has something like that in it. Maybe it doesn't. It's up to the sound designer. That's the best part. So the key here when doing this project, at least in this first week of it is a 2-week project, is to make your sound effects. You can use the sound effects that you created in your sound design project. You can find new sound effects or make them. If you find sound effects, don't use them raw. Change them, modulate them, automate them. Do all of those sound design techniques we discussed in the earlier week. You can use Simpler as a great tool, especially for things like footsteps or other effects where there's timing information. Use panning, use automation, use very short delays and automation to create different sort of time effects. All of these are great techniques to use when designing anything, but they're particularly useful in the context of a video game where you might have to come up with an imaginary landscape and what that would sound like.